Manny, we're going to hold about 3 minutes for Mayor Source. At 3:34, we'll start if she's not here. All right, let's get started. Good afternoon. I would like to call the SolTrans Board meeting to order. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Madam Clerk, will you please confirm a quorum?
We do have a quorum.
Thank you. Do we have any statements of conflict from any board members? Nope. We will now move over for the approval of the agenda. Unless there are any additions, deletions, or objections, I will move the approval of the agenda.
Second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes.
Thank you. This is the opportunity for public comment. This is the opportunity for public comment on any matter not on the agenda, not within the subject matter jurisdiction, but within the subject matter jurisdiction of the SolTrans Board. SolTrans Board welcomes public comment on matters within our jurisdiction and authority, but strongly denounces hate speech, obscenity, and disruptive behavior in meetings. Disruptive individuals will be admonished and removed from the meeting pursuant to Government Code Section 54957.95. We ask for members of the public to ensure their remarks are within the jurisdiction of this board and to refrain from making hateful or obscene comments. Manny, would you please start our sign-up clock for public comment? Madam Clerk, will you read the following public comment notice?
Thank you, Chair Scott, members of the board. Members of the public wishing to sign up may do so at the back of the council chamber. And public attending by Zoom may simply click the raise hand icon, or those dialing in by phone, press *9 to make public comment. At the conclusion of our 2-minute sign-up period, in-person speakers will be called up first, followed by those on Zoom and phone. While this is the opportunity for comment on items not on the agenda, there will also be opportunity for comment for items on the agenda when those items are heard.
Thank you. Manny, do we have any persons wishing to speak under general public comment?
Through the chair, yes, we do have one speaker online that would like to speak.
Thank you. Will you please admit them?
Justin Hamilton Hull, please unmute yourself. You have the floor.
Thank you so much. I think I know this somebody. I think I know you guys. That you guys sit on a IT tap transportation, never by transportation. My question is, I tried to sign up email newsletter. It's not coming into my email. Please, if there a way I can send an email, how I can send email to, so I can be part of your guys' email scribe email newsletter. So thank you.
Yes, can we instruct her how to get what the email address is?
The email address to sign up, I believe you may be asking to sign up for these meetings. The email address is admin, A-D-M-I-N, .office, O-F-F-I-C-E, at soltransride.com. That's SolTransRide.com.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Are there anyone else in line?
Through the chair, no other speakers at this time.
Thank you. We will now move on to the Executive Director's report.
There is no report tonight. Anything we're going to cover is covered on the agenda and other items. There was no executive director's report. Everything we wanted to cover is covered in the agenda and other items.
Thank you, Christina. We'll now move to Youth Ride Free update. Manny Renshaw.
Thank you, Chair. Members of the board, we have a representative here from the Vallejo School District. Just wanted to hear, wanted you all to hear their perspective of our partnership and how the Youth Ride Free program is going, as well as the collaborative work we did for the Route 82 and the other changes that are coming in August to help support getting students to school. So with that. Yes, thank you.
Welcome. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Marin Trujillo. I'm the new Executive Director of Operations at Vallejo City Unified School District, a Vallejo resident. And on a side note, I used to oversee a student bus pass program in West Contra Costa Unified for many years out of Measure J. It helped reduce chronic absenteeism tremendously, and it served 2,500 students for, I think it continues there at this time. I am relatively new. This is my 4th day, so I'm actually here just to say I'm here. I have no report to give, but I wanted to introduce myself and say I'm here as a partner and ally, and I believe in public transportation. Yeah. Happy to field any questions so that I can take back. That's it. Yeah.
Thank you for coming. We did include the Youth Ride Free ridership update in this presentation. I echo what Beth has said the last couple of months is the ridership continues to grow. We do hear anecdotally from the school district that this is helping with chronic absenteeism, that is lowering. If you are around the transit center, if you are on board the bus, you can see the youth are very present in our community, riding the bus, active at the transit center, and this is reflective as their ridership is constantly increasing year over year and month over month. But we are seeing a seasonal trend. The December, January, February still kind of blows my mind. Typically, you see a dip in ridership during those months because of the weather, because school being out and holidays. But this year, we saw quite the increase over those 3 months. But they're using the system. The program is working the way it was intended to work, to get kids to school, to get them access to jobs, to their community, to just independence. And then we've talked about this before of how we can quantify that we are turning these children, this youth, into actual adult riders on public transportation. How we'll get there, how we can monitor that is still to be how we can track them, but I couldn't be prouder of this program, and I love checking every month to see how the ridership increases.
Thank you. Clearly, this is a investment that has paid off in significant dividends, and this is truly what I believe is the role of transportation, of getting people from point A to point B, and particularly getting our youth to school, and seeing that tremendous jump. If you look at 23 to 24, and look at it to 25, 26, that is a tremendous jump. That's from 5,000 to almost 17,000. So kudos to the school system, kudos to the board here for our insight in taking that investment and putting it into our youth. Go for it.
Thank you. First of all, congratulations on your employment.
Thank you.
Happy to have you part of the community. I heard you say you're also living here. Welcome to Vallejo. I wanted to ask, have you noticed the attendance record, the data and the stats? Have that been improved?
Yeah, so I don't have the data myself right now. From a tracking purpose, I'm assuming that my colleagues have a way. Through the beauty of student IDs, we can track many, many things. But for us, what bottom line is the number of students who show up to school consistently. Anecdotally, I can tell you from my previous experience of the other program through Measure J in Contra Costa County, is that students, high school students, what they loved was the independence.
That's
and they
right.
loved the invisibility. We were able to give them a clipper card so that there wasn't any othering, right? So at the beginning, people did not want to feel like they were part of a program. Nobody wants to be part of a program, right? They just want to live their lives. So we work well, but from a data perspective, I'll take that back. I'm sure we can have clear data if there's, I don't know about our FERPA, HIPAA agreements, but there are ways that we can find out and speak from a cohort perspective. What was the impact? Was a student chronically absent before they got into the program? Did it improve? Also, we'll be interested to do some surveys at the end and find out what was their motivation for it. Maybe access to school was not the reason why they wanted this. Maybe they wanted this to go to work after school or to do enrichment programs. So it will be important to know who our customer is and what they need and what they want. And of course, if we could continue the program, that would be even better. Yeah.
Thank you so very much. I appreciate it. And thank you to the team.
Thank you. Are there any other board members who'd like to make comment? Mayor Hernandez?
Yes, I love this program, and I absolutely believe in its support of addressing absenteeism and truancy specifically, because once it becomes chronic, it's definitely an issue, and not only on the academics, but strain to their family and all of those pieces as well. So one of the things I'm interested in how we keep these programs sustainable long term, and I really see this as an opportunity to have this be a turnkey project, meaning that if we can quantify and qualify the data from the school side, right, to show that by having programs like this increases attendance or participation, reduces barriers to get to school, then and we can see that in the school district performance. Not that we're saying like these students have to be like straight A students or anything like that. It's, are they present in the classroom? The data demonstrates that when the child is present in the classroom, what they absorb just by being there, even if they didn't take any notes, is greater than if they had not been there in the first place, right? And so if we can just show that the children are arriving to school, they're getting exposed to material, part of the experience and creating friends and all of that, I'm looking for opportunities that we can demonstrate that for other funding sources that are not just transportation, but from the education side of the house that can sustain programs like these, and then how we can continue to enhance that experience. So I'm just going to plus one again to what you just said about how can we track this from the school district side and demonstrate over a period of time, a couple of years, to see how we can then funnel some funding for additional sustainability.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense to me. What I'm hearing is proof of effort. Did we do what we said we were going to do? And proof of impact. Did it work? Right? So I think those are two very distinctive ones. How many kids did we intend to have enrolled in the program? Was that threshold met? And then what happened to them? To your point about chronic absenteeism, it may be that a kid was not a chronic absenteeism, but if they self-report that they were able to do more things, then that's also important quantified information. So I'll take it back to the team, the homework assignment that you want to see what was the impact of the program. And maybe there's already work with other colleagues that's underway that I don't know about. Yeah.
Thank you. Mayor Soares?
I want to say welcome.
Thank you.
Thanks for joining us. And I was just going to add, so the rest of the board is aware that we'll be continuing this conversation from a different angle at the 2x2 next week with the school district and the city to talk about Youth Ride Free and the school closures and changes and transportation needs of students. So it's great that we're having this here, and then we'll have a conversation from a different angle next week with Mandy, I believe, will be joining that.
Yeah. On that point, if I may, that is my top priority as I come in, is to ensure that all of our staff are moved effectively from their closing schools to the new schools, and we need to talk about what is the impact on bus routes, et cetera. So that's my top priority right now. Yeah.
Seeing none, any We'll move over to public comment. Is there anyone wishing to make public comment on this item?
Through the chair, currently do not have any members of the public signed up to speak on this item.
Thank you, Manny. We'll now move to the consent calendar, or is anyone on? There's no one online, right? Okay. Move to the consent calendar. The next item is the consent calendar. Items on the consent calendar are considered routine and will be adopted in one motion unless a request for removal or explanation is received from a board member. Items removed from the consent calendar shall be considered immediately following the adoption of the consent calendar. Manny, do we have any persons wishing to comment on the consent items?
Through the chair, currently do not have any members signed up for this item.
Okay. The consent items are, switching sheets. 7A, board meeting minutes of April 16th, 2026. 7B, public advisory committee PAC meeting minutes of April 23rd. 7C, fiscal year 26-27 TDA, state transit assistance, regional measure 2 and regional measure 3 funds. 7D, approval of SolTrans project list for California State of Good Repair Program funds for the fiscal year 26-27. And finally, 7E, the Clipper Institutional Pass Pilot Amendment. Are there any board members wishing to pull any of the items? Mayor Young?
7C, 7E.
7C is in Charles?
Yes.
And E?
Yes.
Edward?
And for me, I would like 7B and 7D.
7B as in boy and 7D as in Delta.
Delta,
Okay.
the light.
All right, so what we have is 7A. Is there a motion on?
I'll move that item.
I'll second it. Or do we need a second, right?
I'm sorry?
Oh, yeah. All right, I'll second it.
All in
Okay.
favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously.
All right, 7B. Mayor Young?
Ms. Gordon?
Yep.
Is B
Ms.
on
Gordon?
C and E.
I just wanted to know more how the PAC is going, and anything they want to report out, anything they want to share to this particular board.
Everything is reflective in the minutes. We do have a full PAC committee, which has been great. The last
Yes.
2 months have been wonderful, meeting with them and having a full collaborative group. But yeah, it's been really nice.
That's good to know. Yeah, I remember we didn't have a full board, so that's great. Thank you. And then then you're next. Thank you for that report.
Any other comments on 7B? If not, I'll entertain a motion.
I'll move it.
I'll second it.
And moved and seconded, please call the roll.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously.
7C?
So 7C is about claims that we want to make for RM2 and RM3 monies. And there was a third tranche of money that involved TDA money, I think, through, and I guess my question is, do we need or have we received comments or concerns from either STA or any of the intercity transit people about that particular claim on funds?
No, this is our annual claim of our funding, as well as the TDA that we could claim from other jurisdictions that's already been approved by the STA board.
I know it's what we
Yeah.
can, but I'm just asking if any of them have resisted or commented or have any concerns.
Oh, no, everybody approved the budget. So, yeah, no, it's fine.
Yeah, that was my only question. Okay. I'll move the item.
All right, we have a move. Do we have a second?
I'll second it again.
We have a second?
All in favor?
Please. Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously.
All right, that was 7C. We'll move on to 7D, project list for California State of Good Repair Program.
I'll pass on this. I didn't mean to select that. I meant to select what Mayor Young select. Thank you. So can we
Good
move
on
that?
that one.
We're good, then?
Want to move that
Do you
one?
want to move it then?
We
Yeah.
have a
I'll
motion
second it.
and a second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously.
And now we are on to 7E, Clipper.
Yeah, and that was just my sort of monthly question about have we made any progress with trying to receive any of the monies that we never collected for the rollout of the first Clipper card where we had thousands of dollars, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands, I'm not sure what the number is, but two-part, have we been able to identify the actual amount that we think we have lost, and have we had any success with a resolution with MTC?
We have not been pursuing with MTC. It's very difficult to quantify because you don't know we don't know who didn't tap or get charged. You know, we only know historically what type of revenue and versus ridership, like an average fare is, and so we're inferring how much we lost, but we really don't.
But we know how many people got on a bus on a particular day.
Right, but then you got to look at, did they pay with token transit? Did they pay with, cash on the fare box? It's very hard to determine how much potential cloth. We have an estimate of what we think we lost, but it's not enough of a basis to go to MTC and say we exactly lost this. The only thing we can quantify is for the time period when they charged people, when the buses were defaulting to the local fare instead of charging the express riders the express fare. But that has been fixed.
All right.
And there was one other issue that came up that I was going to discuss later on the agenda that we discovered when C2 went live with the way some of the express buses, so it was the programming in their back end, and it was defaulting to the Solano County, the inter-county fare instead of the intra-county instead of the inter-county fare. And we caught it, brought it to MTC's attention. We worked with Cubic, and they corrected it immediately. So they're being much more responsive about fixing these issues.
Let me ask our MTC commissioner, have there been other cities or transit agencies that have had the same problem, and have any of them been able to submit information sufficient where they might make a claim?
So there have been issues around the Clipper and that process for all the agencies that use Clipper.
Yeah.
To my knowledge, there hasn't been a submission made by any of those agencies for a recompense for that. And when I asked about it, I was told that we would need to draft a letter. Then I brought that back to staff here. And 3 months after that, I asked MTC, hey, what's the status of that? And they said, the status of what? We haven't got a letter. We haven't got anything from you. Well, it explains why, because we don't have a way to quantify it.
So what Christina said, we can send them a letter, but if you can't put a number on it.
If you can't put a number on it, right? And the number that we're talking about, which at the time, the last time I heard everybody tossing around was like $800,000. There has not been any claims that there has been a loss of that size by any municipality or transit agency attached to Clipper that I have heard at MTC at all, not even close to that.
Do we need to account for this in some fashion when we do our books for audit purposes?
No, I mean, we just record revenue as received. There's no way to ever know because there's a lot of people could ride the bus for free. There's sometimes the machines aren't working on the bus, and so people get on for free. So you never can. We know what type of revenue we should collect, and we know what we are collecting. So, but it is going up. So that is the good news.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Those are my questions.
I have a question.
Ms. Gordon?
Thank you. So, speaking to our legal, is there anything that we could do?
I would say without proof, and which is what staff is saying, we can make a claim, but if you can't prove it, there's really no way to argue with MTC. And so we think that there's an issue, but without the actual demonstration of saying this is the actual number, I don't think that we have a very good argument with MTC. So
I see. Thank you.
Mayor Soares?
Yeah, so along those lines it feels like we might, just want to plan for this being a future issue potentially as well. Is there anything we can put in place with our drivers? Like, I don't know if they have a clicker for riders with a way to denote between youth and, like, if we could kind of back out how many, because we have the youth ride free statistics, we have the ridership statistics. Is there a way that we can back it out and figure out how many fares we were collected on each route, how many riders we had, minus how many youth, and like get that different, just in case this happens again, so that we're ready for MTC to be like, this is it, this is the amount.
I could talk to staff. It would be difficult. I mean, we
Okay,
know what the ridership is because we have our automatic passenger counters.
Yeah.
In terms of who's paying what type of fare, we try as hard as we can to eliminate having the driver do anything because that ends up being not accurate. You know,
Yeah.
they do it for some people, not everybody. A bunch of people get on at once, or the driver steps off the bus and a bunch of
Yeah.
people board. You know, then you miss all those.
And you want
It's
them
very
driving.
difficult.
Yeah, you want them focused on driving.
Yeah.
So I guess that was the question I was asking, is in terms of a risk management, is it more risky to try to add all these additional processes to
Yeah, I mean, in the
mitigate that other
past,
risk?
when
And it sounds
people
like it might be.
just paid at the fare box, it was a lot easier to track who was paying by pass versus cash, and were they a youth rider, adult rider?
Yeah.
We're losing a lot of visibility into that, that level of
okay.
data now.
Thanks for
So-
clarifying that.
So Mayor Source does bring up a fascinating question. What is Plan B if indeed this would fail again at such a substantial, will we be able to catch it quickly?
I think right now we're in a much better position because they have switched over to the Clipper 2 business rules. We've caught a lot of the issues. We're not seeing the default fares that we used to see in the past. I think we're in a much better spot, and we're watching revenue continue to rise. I'm very curious to see how Q4 turns out because they did fix that last issue in early May. So Q4 will be really telling if the express fare revenue, increases the way we think it should. So it's something we'll just continue to monitor. I don't know what Plan B is. So.
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
You might answer it. Go ahead.
So if we fail to catch it at SolTrans, the very next meeting that I go to for MTC, I guarantee you one of the other or many of the other 30 to 50 agencies that use a Clipper card are going to catch it as well. Okay. And it will be a topic of discussion at the MTC meeting. It does come up if there's an issue. I guess MTC is your backstop. If you don't,
Right.
if we can't catch it on our bus, the ferry's going to catch it. The
whole system.
Oh yeah, everybody,
Right.
all the other transit agencies, they're going to catch it, and it will come up, so we will know. At least we would be able to stop the bleeding at that point,
Right.
right? Because then we can say, hey, there's a problem, and we need to address it, or
Right.
we need to start tracking.
Thank you.
Thank you for that. My question is, when will we actually see the next data from that?
For Q4, I usually bring that, well, it would have been August, so September. I can see if I don't know if I'll have enough data to bring it to the July meeting. It's pretty quick after month end. If I have revenue information, I'll bring at least that piece.
Thank you.
Thank you. Is there a motion,
I'd like to make the motion.
please?
Sure, I'll make the motion. Oh, did
I'll
you make
second it. Yeah, I made it. You want to second it? So,
All those in favor?
aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you. That takes us through the consent items. We will move now over to the action items. Next item is item 8A, the proposed fiscal year 2026-27 performance goals.
Okay, we are bringing back the goals. Last month, we discussed the draft goals, incorporated comments and your feedback, and then brought that to the PAC for their feedback as well. There was very robust conversation at the PAC meeting. They gave us lots of comments, feedback for things that we could think about for the future. There was really only one suggestion that warranted changing the goals, and that was defining on-time performance. So we've incorporated that into the goals. And I also added the short-range transit plan. Forgot that MTC had put that off for another year, and so that's this year. We need to, they're issuing the guidelines in the summer. And we have to have a draft report by the end of the year, by the end of the calendar year, to the sports. So we've added that as another priority in the goals. And with that, happy to answer any questions.
Do we have any questions? Mayor Young?
So the one thing that jumped out at me in the goals, it was pretty high up, second or third, was the branding and marketing. I'd like to know how much money we're spending on things like buying tables to events, consultants, that kind of stuff. To me, that sort of has to fall down the ladder in terms of priorities, in terms of spending money. And I think maybe we're doing too much of that branding stuff, so I'd like to get a number that represents how much we have spent in the last year on buying tables to events and for the consultant who helps us with this kind of stuff.
You want the entire marketing and advertising budget?
That would
Or
be-
broken down?
If
Yeah.
that has it, not the
Yeah.
budget, but so much what we spent money on, so the actuals.
Yeah, so we're projecting to spend about $225,000, which is less than 1% of the budget. And that's the same budget for next year, but this includes, we do use a consultant to help us. She's an extremely cost-effective consultant that helps us with a lot of these outreach events. Mandy's one person. She can't be at every single tabling event, so they're extremely helpful with that. And also ensuring that SolTrans is part of the Vallejo community and Benicia community, setting up events. Mandy could probably talk about some of the tabling. I don't think we actually pay for a lot of the tables. They're sponsored.
Really?
We trade marketing. So they'll give us a table in turn for us marketing their, well, Mandy can talk to it, yeah.
Yeah, most of our sponsorships, where you see our logo at Benicia Main Street or VCAF or those things, we have traded advertisement on board the buses. I reserved 2 buses, 2 local buses, 2 express buses, those tail ads. So those, we give them a sponsorship amount equivalent to in that marketing. So most of those tables come with that. We are the sponsor. We put the ads on the screens and board the bus, attend their events, or provide the shuttle for the event. And then we lay that out and what that equals to, and that's our sponsorship.
Well, that's helpful. And it does, though, raise a question about advertising in general. And do we ever want to talk about selling ads on buses? Because that's
And we do. And we do. We have ads on
do
the
sell
sides of the
ads.
buses, on the bus tails. We make, I think last year we made $50,000. This year it's a little lower. So we do pretty well there. The other thing is most of the advertising that we pay for to put ads in other publications are for outreach and notification of service changes, things we're
Yeah.
required
Well,
to
you got to
do.
do that. I
Yeah.
understand that.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Is there a chance that we could get a quick analysis of the cost equivalents of the sponsorships that we trade for? So if the ad costs $100 and we trade for a table, are we technically losing $100 if we didn't need to be at one of these community events? It's just kind of get a sense of how much we are spending, because although it's not real cash, it is in a potential loss of space, because space is limited.
That's a good question. The amount, like 2 months of a tail ad for 2 buses is about $1,500, and that's usually the lowest sponsorship for an event that includes a table, and that runs for 8 weeks. I've not come across a point where we are taking away from potential revenue with those ads, that our advertising person has said, well, I've sold out the fleet, I don't have 2 buses available. That hasn't come up. I think if that did come up, then we would need to reevaluate how we use those community buses, but it hasn't come up. That I think that's what you're asking, is
Right,
if we're
that's what I'm
losing
asking.
revenue
Yes.
by
Yes.
giving away.
Right, absolutely.
the ads. Yeah.
Because it's a limited resource.
Yeah, that hasn't come up yet.
Okay, thank you for that. All right, are there any other comments, Supervisor?
Yeah, thank you. Mitch is fine.
Okay.
Right, I'm good with that. So really quickly, at less than 1% of the budget, since I've been sitting down here on this board, one of the biggest issues that I hear us talk about is communicating to our riders and also trying to build ridership. These monies for these tables go directly to that, right? And an investment of less than 1% of what we spend in order to increase that, I don't think we should be fiddling with that. I think we should approve that. It should be part of the budget. We might even need to be doing more of it
Yeah,
to get that message out there. You know, I don't want to I don't want to upset the apple cart.
Hopefully I'm not confusing or conflating. The tables that when you go out to Benicia to talk about mobility, et cetera, I'm talking about the tables at the events of the Vallejo Arts Festival or something like that.
Are you talking like at a fundraiser, at a dinner or something,
Yeah, at a
sponsoring a
dinner.
table?
That,
Oh, okay.
That's what I'm talking about.
I'm tracking now.
Sorry.
No, all right, we're talking about
Apples.
two different things, all right.
6, 7.
Go get them, boys. Yeah, okay, I got it, yeah, go get them, boys.
Not to confuse it more, but sometimes our sponsorships do come with our ability to table at an event. For Benicia Main Street is a perfect example of that. Our sponsorship, we put ads for the waterfront weekend and come to the event. We don't have to pay for our tabling at the Benicia Farmers Market. So that's part of our sponsorship.
Right.
So yes, some of those tabling events are reaching out to the community. Others are going to events and supporting the Benicia Main Street or the VCAF or Vallejo, Visit Vallejo, those things. For us, there's no cash donation. It is a sponsorship that we give them in-kind marketing or come to their events.
Thank you. Thank you. Manny, do we have anyone wishing to make public comment?
Do the chair.
Whoop.
I was waiting.
Mayor?
No, you go ahead, Mayor.
One of the things I think would be beneficial for us to better understand even more, and this is not for right now, just a future opportunity, is to have a better understanding of all the places we do have marketing and how we get there, and the exchange of those sponsorship opportunities for the advertising pieces, and then where those are circulating. So for example, I've heard like Vallejo Art, I've heard Benicia, but we also service all the way to Dixon. We also service over there. Like, the May Fairgrounds just happened. Were we there? Right? That's a really great question because it helps us understand where the gaps are. And so if there's sponsorship opportunities that we're going to just have a trade in service that is net neutral, that's mutually beneficial, both to be present in the community, but also then to then have, they're getting advertising by giving us that opportunity. It helps us understand are we equitable in that distribution of opportunity throughout the region where Solano Express is going through, right, for example. And if that's one help, provides visibility to that. And it also helps us understand where we might have gaps in our advertising or in connections or in the partnerships that can exist in other communities throughout. And I know that we already are out there. I see the list of all the tabling events that happen when we're doing service changes. I see the broad area of work, but how can we elevate that even more to see not only do we need to add funding, we might be a little short here, or do we need to think more creatively about what other alternative options that we have. The trade opportunity should not be limited just to something on the bus. There's also when you talk about those monitors, right? Those are easier and more flexible that we can have an opportunity to table or an opportunity to sit at or an opportunity to display our banner somewhere for a visibility location, and what they get in return is being on that monitor. That reduces the cost associated to us because it's not on the tail end of the vehicle, but it's definitely another alternative that we can think through, right? So just helps us understand how we can be able to be more effective in providing you feedback on other opportunities for the agency.
I'm happy to bring that back as a board report to you all. Yes.
Councilmember?
Thank you. I just wanted to know a little bit more about your goal in 1B, the install of the new bus stops and make changes to existing stops by August 1st in conjunction with MTC Pilot Regional Wayfinder and MAP project standards. Is this what you're referring to, the Cartola?
No, this is all the bus stops around the system. We are adopting the standardization of the new bus blades. That is the Bay Area standard of how to display what a bus stop blade looks like, the sizing, the colors, the icons that you see on it. Gordon came to the January board meeting, so that's what that's referring to, is we're changing out all the green and white SolTrans blades and adopting the regional signage, and that's what that goal is referring to.
And also change the names of some of the routes because they want numbers and stuff.
Correct.
Yeah.
Right, so you probably already know that I do sit on that, and I wanted just to be on record so that people are looking out for it. And then also too, it is to accommodate those with disabilities for the purpose of this, but everyone benefits. Thank you.
Okay, well, let's try public comment.
Thank you, Chair. Currently do not have any members of the public signed up to speak on this item.
Okay, I'm looking for a motion then.
I'll move approval unless someone just raised their hand.
Yes, in fact, we did have somebody raise their hand. Justin Hamilton Hull, please unmute yourself. You have the floor.
Thank you. I just let you know, I just sent you guys email today, this afternoon, about the newsletter, email newsletter. I just love to see new bus stop, and again, I am on Tampa Valley Transportation, and I go a lot for me. Again, please check your email. I just sent you today. Thank you. Have a great 3 weekend and happy Memorial Day weekend.
No other speakers at this time, Chair.
Thank you, Manny. We have a recommendation to approve the proposed 26-27 performance goals as shown in attachment A. Is there a motion to approve the recommendation?
Yes, second.
If you're moving, I'll second.
We have a motion and a second.
All
Please
those in
call the
favor?
roll. Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you. We will move on to item 8B, the contract for legal services. Christina?
Yes, we are bringing this back to the board per your request 6 months ago when we signed a one-year contract with Bernadette to stand for as our legal counsel. So staff needs direction as to what you would like us to do since her contract expires November 30. If we need to get quotes for other legal counsel, we need time to plan for that so we can make sure we have a contract in place by December 1st. So we've put a couple options there for you. We did do some research. There is no state rule or any procurement rule that we have to do an RFP for legal services. Legal is exempt from this. We can certainly solicit informal quotes from other law firms, or we can offer to extend Bernadette's contract.
Thank you. I'll open it up. Mayor Source?
Yeah, thanks. I was going to ask, so it sounds like the county has said that they don't anticipate having capacity to take it back.
Correct. Sorry, I
So,
meant to mention that, yes.
I
They
think
don't not.
I think we benefit a lot from having Byrne continue on. My question really is, and it might be more of a question to Byrne, is given that the county doesn't anticipate having capacity to take this back, you're semi-retired and continuing this, what do you think a good transition looks like in terms of, if we've only ever had one council in the entire existence of this organization, we are going to have to make a transition at some point, and it probably won't be back to the county. Is there a way to sort of bring on someone for ancillary and get them up to speed and kind of transition ahead of time? I guess, what do you recommend when with a situation like that? Because I'm fully supportive of continuing the current plan, but I want us to have a plan so that we're not just back here again in a year or two. Yeah.
It's completely up to the board. And so my legal ethical obligation is when you transition to a new legal counsel, I transition all files. Clearly, I have 15 years worth of files to transition over to somebody. So I would transition relevant files over and pass off current knowledge, whatever I have. So that is the ethical obligation. I can tell you my experience when I was transitioned into the role of new STA counsel, assuming it from, at the time, Chuck Lamory. Chuck Lamory formed STA. He was the only legal counsel for STA. Chuck then, when he became ill and could no longer serve as legal counsel for STA, it was transitioned over to me. I then assumed, we had communication, I then assumed the role and took it on. And then in that capacity, then formed SolTrans and became SolTrans legal counsel. So I just want to clarify as to why, and I'm just going to be frank, County Council is not interested in taking it on while there is current conflict between STA and SolTrans. And that's the reason, right? And so as long as there's conflict, there is not going to be a desire to provide services. There still has not been a backfill of the vacant position in County Council, so there's still that issue of workflow, but there is currently a conflict. And so ethically, that is not an option. Solve that problem and you've got a backfill. So that would be one suggestion for you all that sit on both boards to try to figure out how to solve that. But back to your question, there's an ethical obligation with regards to an attorney representing a client. I am ethically obligated to ensure a proper handoff to somebody else. SolTrans is my baby, you know, other than Suzanne. She and I were here at the very beginning, so it's something that, even though, yes, I am retired, it is not something that is a big burden, which is why at the conversation of when I announced my retirement, I said, at the conversation whether or not I was interested, I would still be willing to continue to work with the agency. It is not a big commitment. You are not demanding. There are a few issues that may be brewing that might take up a little bit more time, but it's not demanding and it's not a full-time gig. And therefore, it's something that I am willing to consider if you do want to continue with me. If you want to go out, that's also fine. So it's not, you know, it's whatever you all want to do. That answers the question.
Thank you. We'll move on down the line, starting with Supervisor Mashburn.
Well, the one thing that we didn't address is you're not planning on bailing anytime soon, right? I mean, if we say we're committed, you're willing to commit for a period of time, right? We keep talking about a transition, and there's no imminent transition taking place, right? I mean, it's a pretty good side hustle. Yeah.
I plan to be here.
Yeah,
I plan
okay.
to be alive.
Yeah. Right?
I'm no offense. I mean, Chuck Lamory, the reason why he stepped away was a physical issue.
Right. You're not
I mean, he
taking up
became
fishing,
ill.
right?
I'm
Yeah. So,
still on the right side of the daisies.
there you go. That's what I always say. All right. So with that, I would be in support of continuing Ms. Curry's contract. Her depth of knowledge of this organization is unparalleled, and her commitment to this organization is also unparalleled, I can tell you. So I would support her continuing in this role as long as she's willing to do that.
I'll move it down. I too support this. I applaud your desire to continue on with nursing your baby along through the bumps on the road, so to speak. And I would hope that when you get to the point where you're tired of it, we'll have enough notice that we can start the opportunity to have you mentor the next Bernadette for the next 2 generations or 3 generations of folks that will be up here. Pass it on to Ms. Gordon.
Thank you. Yeah, but she probably translates to her daughter. I'm Bernadette's daughter. Or son, whatever. But I am 100% in support. I really do appreciate the work that you do and the beyond. And I've learned a lot, and so I appreciate you taking, especially me being a new chairperson in this capacity, and very gentle, and I just want to say thank you for that. So I am 100% support.
Mayor Young?
Yeah, I also am supportive of keeping Bern as long as she's willing to stay. The one thing that I noticed is it said the county council is willing to extend their pre-existing contract for claims administration and backup legal services through June 30, 28. So if at that date they decide they want to do something different, we may at that same date want to consider the whole overall legal services, so maybe extending burn through that date, June 30, 28, rather than one additional year, may make some sense.
If I may just address that, as when I became county council, we in that office brought in claims administration. I don't know for all of you how much you know about claims administration, but normally that's handled by a third-party administrator. And so when SolTrans was formed, we at SolTrans contracted with a firm called George Hills and Company. George Hills had a particular employee by the name of Cynthia Gordon, who then was assigned to SolTrans to administer SolTrans's claims. I was fortunate enough to establish, with the support of the Board of Supervisors, a claims administrator position within the Office of County Council, and hired Cynthia Gordon, who had intimate knowledge of SolTrans. And so she was the one who set up the claims administration process with SolTrans, and she is the one still managing the claims for SolTrans, and that is that particular contract. And so she's interested in continuing the relationship. She is still managing the claims for SolTrans, and so that is that key portion of that. Obviously, the main legal services are provided by me. I am in contact with the office. I had people, we had a little restraining order issue, a particular patron, this not a recent one, but a couple months ago before after I retired, a deputy assisted me with that. So there's still that backup services, and so that contract still is in place for those types of reasons.
Right, and so, but they've said that, well, I mean, I'm sort of interpreting that when they give the June 30, 28 date, that means at that point they may want to either end it or renegotiate it or do something else. I guess we have a written agreement with them to do this, and it runs through 28.
Yeah.
So we could extend for 28, or and look at everything at that point, because we may have to do a whole different kind of legal thing, or expect you to do claims administration and pay you more money.
Yep. Did not expect that.
Mayor Hernandez?
Yes, thank you so much for bringing this back. I think this is part of the process I wanted us to honor, just this conversation alone. When it came to us in January, it was a consent item. I'm like, wait a minute, we should actually have an action item, be an opportunity to discuss it. What does it mean for us currently, the long term, succession planning, all of those pieces that I think valuable for the board to actually be able to even have a conversation. I think to the point that was made earlier, and I always appreciate your frankness, because that's what helps us, just to be straight up. It's like there's some conflicts within a couple of things that need to still be worked through, and I think that we are at a place that we recognize that collaboration is required, understanding the processes, the systems, how they were formed, and how we can continue to move them forward. I think between those transitions happening right now, work coming ahead about subcommittees to continue to unpack that work as we kind of continue to refine the processes and collaboration between this agency and other agencies, as well as the current landscape in transportation, from like the funding issues to the Clipper card issues to all of those pieces. I think your experience, not only as legal counsel, but in not only the history of SolTrans, but also of the landscape that we're navigating through right now, all of those pieces that you've watched over time, I think is the type of guidance that we as a board will really need in this next phase as we continue to navigate through those things. And so I appreciate just hearing everybody was like, I was already like, yeah, okay. So it's, but just to hear this is a conversation that I think is really valuable, because it allows us to also bring forward for us. It's like, well, what does it mean for county council and the claims? What does it mean for long-term succession planning? What does it mean for all of those things? That's what makes healthy conversations take place. And so it's like I support where the board is going in those places, and I do think that we need to have like those conversations about the long term for the organization as a whole. But at this time, I do believe you're in the position that we need your support to help guide some of these pieces. What you just talked about, I was listening to you and I was like, I had no clue. That's how the claims, like, there's no clue, like, there's no historical context to that. And if we don't have boards that understand how we arrived, we can't fix some of the problems that we have in other areas of work that and you know this because I've reached out to you in the past, like, how did we arrive to this? And my perception of what was, I was off because I didn't have the historical context of why certain things were needed in order to arrive to a certain policy, for example, or a certain area of work, and then that helped inform how we can get better for me personally. Like, that was really, really insightful. So, yeah, those are all my comments that I have for all of you.
Thank you. Councilmember?
I just have a clarifying question. So just, Mayor Young, were you making a friendly amendment to extend this request to 28, or?
Well, I think you're just asking for direction, right?
Yeah.
We're not taking motions.
Your mind.
Oh, I'm sorry. I think you're asking, where the board or the staff's asking us for direction. So I think what's in front of us is basically two options. There's no interest in going outside. We all want to retain Byrne. So I think our choices are retain her through July 2028, or June 30th, 2028, or simply extend it for 3 years.
Right.
Which would go to the December 2029. And so those are basically, I think, the choices for the board
Right.
that we need to give direction on.
Right. But we have to open it up for public comment before we can address that.
Through the chair, currently do not have any members of the public signed up for this item.
Thank you. So is there there is an action to take
Yeah.
to approve the recommendation. This is an action item, so it would be consideration of option one, which would be 1 year. Option two would be 2
It would be
years
19
to 28.
It's right here.
I'd say there's two options, one through June 30,
Okay,
28,
Yeah.
which would be 17 months or 18 months
Right,
or
you're
19
bringing
months,
that-
something like that.
Okay,
Or
3
3
years.
years.
Right.
Taking us to December 29.
So I'd like to make a motion to accept option 2 for the 3 years request.
I'm just going to ask, can I ask a clarifying question?
Sure.
I'm only seeing the options as extend through 2028 and go outside. Are we,
There's-
No,
Is there
well,
one
we
through
said
29 that
extend
we
the
can-
current contract from 1 year term to, to a 3 year term, or some other acceptable.
Right.
We could always do through June 30, 28 and do, option years, as well. It's all up to you. And however long Bernadette wants to work.
There's no contract in front of us now, we're just giving
right,
direction
it's
to
just
bring
giving
something
direction.
back by
Right.
December.
So I mean, if Burns willing to do 3 more years, I'd be happy to second that motion,
Yeah.
whatever it was. But it's not option 2, just to be clear, it's not, option 2 on here is solicitation, it's option 1 with
Thank you for-
with a 2029. with
Thank you,
3
Mayor,
more
because
years.
I just read that, and so thank you for clarifying.
So your motion is to do
To-
3 years
yes,
through
3
the
years.
December 29.
That is correct.
Okay.
That's a
And did
motion
you-
for a recommendation.
Mayor Soares seconded. Mayor?
Yes, I'm willing, December 29, and if I'm not, then I find a potential successor and bring that to you for your consideration.
Okay. Mayor Soares, you did second it,
So
right?
there's a motion, a second. Can you call the roll?
Yes, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion as amended passes unanimously.
All right, we'll move on to item 8C. This is the proposed fiscal year 26-27 operating and capital budget.
Okay, so last month we discussed at length the draft budget. Before you is the final budget for next fiscal year. We made a few changes on the operating budget. We needed to increase it a little over $30,000 due to some technology. We have to switch our phone system. The one we've been using is no longer supported. And the options that we had were a lot of money or a lot more money. So we went with the least costly option, which unfortunately is an additional $30,000, but it also avoids $30,000 in capital costs. So that is what we're going to do. We are going to sign that contract. Otherwise, our phones are going to get shut off on, June 15th. And then for capital, we added a couple things. I went ahead and rolled over the electrification project. There's no added money to it. It's the same money. We've got sufficient budget. It's just we're at the point now where the chargers are actually mostly working. There's a couple of cables to fix, but we need to do the whole closeout process of the project. So I wanted to carry that project over to make sure we had budget authority to continue spending the capital budget. It's already been approved. And then the paratransit software, we selected, I believe at the last meeting, Spare Labs, and the implementation is actually $15,000 lower than we had anticipated. So we lowered the budget for that. We also added $50,000 in for facility improvements. We find that typically it's a lot like vehicle maintenance. There's a lot of unanticipated capital things that come up during the year, and we just needed to have a bucket of money to be able to not have to come back to the board for budget authority for every small project on our 4 facilities and 400 bus stops. So, and with that, happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Supervisor?
Yeah, not so much a question, more of just maybe a question for the chair and for council, but it would seem to me that we can't approve this budget until we address 8D on this agenda today, because that will have a direct impact on a budget if we do that, right? One way or the other. That's going to impact. You're talking about 2,500 hours at $241 an hour. You're talking about salaries, you're talking about benefits, you're talking about all those things. That's all part of our budget, operating budget and capital budget. 8D would definitely affect that one way or the other, depending upon the decision of this board. Am I right?
Hadn't we already funded for that at $45,000?
It's already budgeted.
Right, but we did. We already funded for it. But if the partners who gave us that money at that rate say they don't agree with 8D and they want their money back, then your budget is going to take a hit. So we need to make a determination on 8D before, right? We're talking about 2,500 hours at 241, 246 bucks an hour.
Yeah, it's $456,000.
Right. That's quite a hit to the budget if the funding partners decide they don't want to do that.
Okay, well, what if,
Wait.
I would have Christina speak to it.
The cost differential is actually not the full budget, because obviously our overhead is going to be our overhead. So it would just be the variable portion of those hours. Typically, we budget, you authorize the operating budget for X number of hours of service. If we don't perform the service, then that will end up just being budget savings.
All right, I just
Yeah.
didn't want to put the cart before the horse.
Yes, I understand.
Okay.
Mayor Soros?
I was just going to say, I'm glad you brought that up. That was going to be my question to Christina. Is it easier to, amend after than adjust now? And it sounds like it's easier to amend to budget for
Yeah.
more hours and then decrease.
I mean, the reality is we never know exactly how many hours we're going to run. I mean, theoretically, sometimes hours could go over scheduled if there's just an unusual, traffic grows exponentially over the next year and all of a sudden our routes are taking longer than the scheduled. We would actually be having more revenue hours. That hasn't happened yet. We usually budget conservatively for that. But again, there's missed trips. There's other reasons why we actually run less than we've scheduled. So there's always budget variances, is all I'm saying. And so we would not run more service than what you authorize us to run.
Okay, thank you. Let me move it over to Councilmember Gordon.
Thank you. Is there a presentation? Because I have it here, and I just wanted the people to see it as well.
I do not have any slides for this.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Because I have it right here, and I thought maybe people can see it.
Oh, yeah. I mean, it's in the package.
But it's
No,
not.
I don't have a slide for it.
Oh, you don't
no.
have a slide?
Yeah.
Because I wanted to ask a question regarding your expenses. So you were saying something about you didn't want to have to come back. Can you clarify that one more time to us for some type of dollars?
Oh, it was on the, so it's on the third attachment, attachment B. for capital budget, and it was for facility improvements. We added $50,000 for facility. I had not included anything in the budget for facility improvements, and we looked back historically and realized there's always things that come up that, a bay door breaks and we got to replace the door. It's a capital expense. And it was just an oversight in the draft budget. We normally try to put a set dollar amount to at least cover capital things that come up as needed. And certainly anything major, we would come back to the board to discuss.
Thank you for clarifying, because I was looking for that 50,000 you were referring to, and I just don't see it in here. Maybe it's my eyes.
It's on attachment B, so it's the
Yeah, I have it.
you got it? Okay, it's the very bottom.
The very bottom?
Very bottom, it's highlighted in yellow there.
Gotcha. I
Yeah,
see it
that's
now. Thank you.
Sure.
Thank you.
I think I was looking at the initial facility on the second column, and so, but now you see this down below as well. Thank you.
Mayor Young?
So along that same line, is there a number above which you need to come to the board for authorization to spend?
In general, if it's a capital item in the approved budget, then I don't need to come to you. If it's not in the capital budget, I do need to come to you, regardless of the dollar amount. Theoretically, I need to get board authority, budget authority. In terms of contracts, our purchasing policy is contracts over 100,000 need to come to the board. Below 100,000, the executive director has authority.
Yeah, can we, in our budget, we have, if there's an amendment, a cost overrun or whatever that exceeds $200,000, then the staff has to come back to the council for authorization to spend that kind of money. So we have something similar also.
I try to make sure that if I've got to have budget authority. If it's a new expense, there's no budget for it at all, and I don't have savings in another capital similar item that I can shift the funds, then I will come to the board. It's rare that happens.
I think we ought to talk about whether or not we want to have that level of understanding, because we could put $2 million into an account, and you could spend $1.5 million on something, and we would never know it until an audit was done or something else.
No, I would, because that would probably require me signing a contract or a purchase order for over $100,000, and I can't do that without coming to the board.
But cost overruns, change orders, those kind of things.
I believe our purchasing policy, you could tell me, has, there is a provision specifically for construction projects, and if the cost goes over 10%, a change order over 10% has to come to the board.
Okay, all right, thanks.
Any other comments?
One more.
Supervisor?
One thing in that discussion caught me, and that was that, so in the event that there was a cost overrun, you indicated that you have the ability to shift, as long as it's within the capital operating budget, you have the ability to shift items within that budget from one to another. So you could feasibly shift $500,000 from one item to another to make a payment on something, and this board wouldn't know that that money didn't get spent on what it was originally budgeted for. It was moved and spent on something else.
No,
Based on
because
what you just said.
it would never be that high. If there was a change to a contract that required an amendment of anything over if you have an existing contract that's already been over 100,000 that's been approved by the board, anytime we add money to that contract or do a change order, I actually have to come to the board. I can't unless I've written into the board action contingency dollars or allow us to do change orders up to a certain percentage. The purchasing policy speaks to construction projects. That's very clear. Other types of contracts, if they're already over 100,000 and there's any kind of amendment, that's why we often are coming to you even to add $10,000 to a contract. So no, I would not have the budget authority without coming to you.
So you wouldn't then be transferring monies that
No.
were saved in one area of the capital budget over to another?
The only time that happens is, let's say technology. I've got a line item, let's say to replace staff computers, and then I got another line item to replace servers. if I have savings in the staff computers because we decided not to do it and I needed a little more for the servers, I would shift within that category. That is the only shifting that happens.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you. Supervisor, is there anyone wishing to make public comment?
Thank you. Through the chair, yes, we do have one member of the public who, oh, never mind. They no longer want to speak. No speakers at this time.
Thank you. No. All right, then the recommendation to approve the fiscal year 26-27 proposed operating and capital budget as presented in attachments A and B. Is there a motion to approve the recommendation?
I'll move it.
And I'll second it.
We have a motion and a second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously.
All right, on to 8D, system-wide design authorization. It's to you.
Thank you, Chair, members of the board. Staff is requesting the board to rescind the previous action to discontinue the Route 82 and authorize the continuation of operation beginning on August 2nd with the system-wide redesign. I'm going to start, and then I'm going to hand it off to Christina to talk about the timing and the tight turnaround for this action item. So since the adoption of the COA concepts in September of 2025, staff has completed a more detailed phase of the scheduling and operation analysis. We've incorporated layover, recovery time, operation breaks, and then finalized the scheduling for the next step, which is the run cutting, which our contractor takes on. The proposed Solano Express redesign is currently estimated at approximately 42,000 hours after I've done all of those things. The adopted Solano Express budget allows for 45,000 hours. This leaves enough available service hours to reinstate the Route 82 while remaining within the approved budget. Why the 82? The 82 requires approximately 25,000 hours annually to operate. That's 10 hours every weekday. 2,500, I did, thank you for catching that. 2,500 hours annually to run the Route 82. That's 4 round trips a day. A weekday. Those remaining hours are not enough to create another route or expand another route meaningfully within the time constraints that we have. Like I couldn't mess up the blocking or add service to another route because the blocking is set and complete at this time, and that's what the buses do within the schedule that we're given and within the approved concepts that you approved in September. Staff believes that reinstating the 82 is the best and most productive use of those available hours for the Route 82, but for the health of the whole Solano Express system. The Route 82 has increased in ridership approximately 27% this quarter, which we'll see in the system performance report later when Ron presents. And the route currently performs at approximately 12.7 riders per revenue hour. That exceeds the standards of 12 riders per hour. The 82 and the Red Line are the only 2 express routes that reach our productive standard. I'll bring up the Davis service. That was something that was a big topic of conversation last year, and how do we continue that Davis service? Staff did evaluate using the available hours to expand the Davis service. However, a quality hourly Davis service, which we brought to the board last September, is 5,100 hours, and that's more than double what we have available right now. STA did move forward with the Davis van pool, so staff thought that using those available hours would be more appropriate for the Route 82 and reinvesting in the system. Okay, so since we've been out, I've completed, which I'll talk about at my next item, we've completed over half of our outreach, and the 82 has been the biggest point of contention. There's a lot of riders on there that are very upset that that route is going away. So I've spent a lot of hours talking to 82 riders. I'm feeling that. I understand that this is a huge gap in service for them. I'm going to be reading some of their public comments, which I brought to you all today. So that was the biggest disappointment is the 82. We've been able to explain and people understand the other changes, but the 82 is definitely something that has been a hard one to communicate out. So restating that service is responsive to our riders and our community, and still maintains the integrity of the overall design of the system-wide concepts that we brought to you in September. I think the biggest positive of reinstating the 82 is there's no fiscal impact beyond what is already budgeted, but reinvesting these available hours in a productive, high ridership route helps ridership growth, which is the whole concept of the COA, but also makes us stronger for RM3 funding, which we got a lot of funding, which is fully based on ridership. And if we get more funding, we increase ridership, we get more funding, we can reinvest it in the whole Solano Express system, and also long-term fundings like the stick funding. So because we increased ridership, we received two different amounts of money because we exceeded standards and standards across the metrics of increasing ridership. So by reinvesting those hours in a route that already is very productive, we are still making ourselves more, reinvesting those resources to get that funding. I believe that reinstating the 82 is within our budget and responds to rider concern, which is if we don't have riders, then we don't have a system, and it really supports the ridership growth and maximizes the productivity of those hours. I did bring you the comments that we received from the 82, but a couple of them were cut off. I'm sorry, I printed them right before this meeting so that everyone who did provide comments, I could include them. But one of the writers did say, "We need the Route 82 line for the direct service to San Francisco. I bought a home here in Fairfield Sassoon 2 years ago, and this bus line was one of the factors I considered when buying a home here. I work in San Francisco." Sorry. "And the 82 line is the best route for my commute due to the time I have to be at work. Removing this line causes a major problem for me and others." So the Route 82 serves Fairfield, comes through Vallejo, and then directly connects to San Francisco. In my outreach, I've talked to people that live in Vacaville who drive at that early hour, park at the Fairfield Transportation Center, hop on the 82, and then have that direct connection. 82 riders sometimes ride in both directions, in the morning and the afternoon, but there is a lot of riders that I've spoken to that ride in the morning and then take the blue line home or the red line home. So they're using the whole Solano Express system. They're riders that use the whole system. So I'll kick it over to Christina, who will talk about why we're here today and why it was such a quick turnaround.
Yes, thanks, Mandy. Yeah, this was a very, very last-minute decision to put this on the agenda. Mandy finished the schedules, and we discovered that we had savings in hours. We had extra hours available potentially to us, and blocking is due to the contractor next week. Not allowing us time to go through the STA's intercity consortium process to get feedback from the funding partners. So I wanted to put this on the agenda to allow this board the opportunity to have a conversation and give us direction as to what to do. Obviously, our opinion is let's keep the 82 for now, and then we can talk to our funding partners to discuss, what we want to do long term with those hours. We have to do this action today. The other option is to have the 82, to go ahead and terminate the 82 come the August service change, and then decide if we want to have budget savings with these hours or do something else with them in the future. I did reach out to STA and the funding partners to help them understand why we put this on the agenda, why this is such a short turnaround time. The only feedback, we talked to obviously the STA interim executive director Robert Guerrero about their opinions, and I believe he has talked to the board chair, and we also heard from Fairfield that they believe this needs to go through the consortium process and asking us not to take action tonight. But with that, I'm happy, I'll leave it to you to have a discussion, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
I'll open it up to board member comments, but I want to ask the question to Bernadette first. Is the action in front of us to consider reinstatement of the Route 82 within the jurisdiction of this board?
I believe so. You gave direction to staff as you directed staff to bring forward and implement the COA. Staff did so, and in implementing the direction you gave, found additional hours. So within the budget you have, Andy put together a schedule and found something. And when they found a resource, they problem solved, which is what your staff did. They came up with a solution. Mandy said why she didn't recommend something with regards to the Green Line. We all had the conversation about the Green Line. We all know that there is additional service that everybody wants. But this fits within your budget. Should this be a discussion with Intercity, with the consortium, should this be a discussion at STA? Sure. But this is within the budget that you have established. This is within the hours that was approved by the COA, within the budget, the COA that was supported by the STA. So yes, a conversation, but going back to what what STA board has approved and what this board has approved, it's like you found money in the couch. You found hours in the system. Your staff is saying, we found hours in the system. Where do you want to use them? You need to move forward. To have this continual conversation of saying you can't move forward with the SolTrans system because you have to talk to your partners is what is causing delays. You can say, yes, we approve, go forward and have a conversation, and have that conversation, and if that changes, bring back and then have a redesign at that point in time. But you have approved a COA of 45,000 hours. Your system says I'm sorry, my screen just went. You have 2,500 hours. Where do you want to plug them, right? So you approved 45,000 hours. You have 2,500 left over. Where do you want to put them?
Mary Young, your light was on first.
Yes, thanks. So it seems like what we have effectively done is we're not doing the blue line anymore. That the STA has started a van program from Dixon to Davis.
You still have the blue line. You just don't have the blue line up.
Oh, okay. But that's part of where some of these extra hours came from. No. Not from the Dixon to Davis part? No. Okay. It's all right. Wherever it is.
Through the chair, if you're not using your microphone, please turn it off. We can only have 4 microphones on at a time.
Is the green light?
Yeah, can I, through the
need
chair,
to turn on a green
for the non-Vallejo folks, if you hit number 2 on your thing, it turns on a green light, which is a request to speak, and then the chair sees it in order of the lights that were turned on, and then he can recognize us in order, and then we can turn the big mic on after that. It's a unique and exciting way to do microphones because it removes the interference that we deal with in all of our other boards.
But you're still continuing. No, he's still on.
Okay. No, he's not on. Hit the button right there. Wait, and now you're on. There you go. Now you're on. Go ahead.
Oh, okay. I think the action of actually rescinding a former decision is actually a good thing. It shows that a governmental entity can learn something from, maybe that our first take.
One more time.
I think it's a good thing when government boards like ours recognize that a decision we made earlier may not have been the best and that we have the ability to change it and make a better decision. I think the idea, when you read these comments, if we are really, the buses are full, Ron, that's true, the buses are full, it would be crazy in my mind to not do this. How do we justify cutting a line that is actively used? I'd be more interested in seeing if we could add to it. I think what you said is that it's actually 3,000 hours that we have budgeted versus what we've got allocated. This would take 2,500.
Correct.
Could we add 500 hours and add another run in the morning to accommodate? If they're really running full, we should try to accommodate anybody who wants to run.
That would probably have to be explored at a next service change. The blocking and the schedules are set as they are. I just pulled the 82 in as it was, or it's waiting in the queue for your decision. If we were going to add anything or change anything, within this timeline, I cannot add more service or.
And we don't have bigger buses. We're running the biggest bus we have.
Correct, yeah. It seats 57. The bus that operates the 82 seats 57.
Yeah, again, if we're full up and the
It's
demand
not
is.
actually full. I don't want to say,
Well-
I mean, riders like to say buses are full when they want their own row. But
Well, okay.
we do have about 86 people taking those 2 trips in the morning. So if you look at the 4 trips, it's an average of 22 riders a bus, but the maximum load's about 30 riders, which means it's about 1 person per row, so.
Okay, but I can't imagine the city of Fairfield or the intercity group objecting to keeping a line that is popular and growing in terms of ridership.
Right.
So I think and the fact that we have to make these changes as of August 1st, to me, means we got to move on this thing. We can't wait for another set of meetings to happen.
I do want to say one thing that maybe will help this conversation. Consortium meets on Tuesday. So the intercity, all the funding partners will be at consortium. And this is on there as an action item to discuss amending the funding agreement, because right now the 82 is not listed in the amendment for next year. So that is on there. We have the opportunity, if you wish to approve the 82 with the caveat of the consortium and the funding partners also agreeing on Tuesday. If on Tuesday they say, no, we don't want to do this, we'd rather talk about how we want to use these hours at a later date or have budget savings, whatever they decide, we can kill it. We have until next week to decide what we want to do.
SolTrans meeting,
No.
next week.
No, next week. So consortium meets
Okay.
Tuesday. So you could always agree to this contingent on consortium also agreeing, giving the funding partners time to give their 2 cents.
Okay, well, I'd be comfortable with that. I think we have to keep this line. And, if we can supplement it, great. But the idea of cutting it, given these numbers and the fact that it's popular and needed, I think it's a no-brainer to me.
Yes, thank you so much. A couple of things. I think we can all recognize that any opportunity to increase ridership aligns with the values that we have at any transportation agency, regardless of which hat we wear. So this one, I am gonna straddle 2 different areas of the work and hats that I wear. So just letting you all know. I also just want to note that I did ask our interim executive director at STA to be here, just in case I misspoke on anything that he could be able to like, yay or nay, right? And so just to make sure, so I did ask him to be here today. So one of the things that I do want to quickly note is it's exciting to see that we have revenue hours that we can reinvest into the system. That is a plus. It's great to see that we can continue to increase ridership because the numbers say that they're increasing. That's also a plus. When I go back, and I mentioned this in my conversations that I've had already with other members outside of this board, is around the 2030 Policy Committee and the mission and values and statements that we identified is being able to keep a line, increase ridership, get people off of 80, being able to get them to this destination in a timely manner. Those all align with those mission statements and values that both STA and SolTrans agreed in regards to overall ridership. And so those are all positives. The outreach that I received is also around the intercity funding agreement process. And so I do want to just quickly be able to speak to that because that's one of the things that's my responsibility to also name some of those concerns. Specifically around, so Christina, I just want to note, because we we touched base briefly, because I did have these questions about what it would mean for this board to take action ahead of the inter-city funding agreement or the group to be able to meet and decide. Primarily because I have concerns around breach of contract regarding what everyone has already signed legally, that this board would take action ahead of what has already been legally agreed upon, and what would that mean? So Christina helped me understand, well, you know, if this board, because we have to be able to discuss it, if this board says, we believe this is a route we want to save and we want to reinvest these hours in this route, then it could be contingent on the inner city funding group to be able to make their recommendation, and they can go then reset process over here, right? Because, and then we can avoid any of those, you know, legal pieces or things or people like that. And I would say, I don't think it has to do with individuals or other agencies or operators being like, no, we shouldn't be able, if they didn't go to the process. It's that there is a framework in place that also needs to be recognized and respected in that process, right? Especially because we just signed off last week at the other board, right? And so unfortunately the timing didn't work, that we couldn't get an update at the other one to say, heads up, something might be coming. We don't really have all the details, but we think it's a good thing, we should be aware, things like that. That wasn't available for us last week. The other piece is around, I did speak to Christina around like what is being presented to us. In my opinion, one of the things that needed to be presented to us was really what I saw in the email from Christina that was providing the operators and other agencies some of the insight. Really what should have been presented to this board is we have an additional 2,500 plus hours. That's what's presented to the board, and we have items that we can need to either, that are sensitive, that we could take action on, or you need to decide how you want to reinvest it to the system. Because let me tell you, as one of the communities that has ridership to be responsible for, the Green Line is one that we would like to see hours reinvested to, right? And so, that being able to have that conversation, I would not be doing my job if I don't advocate for a line that was reduced to my community, right? But the option to have that conversation was not presented to us today. When we have extra revenue hours to put into the system, the option for us to even discuss what do we want to do with that was not provided to us today. So I just want to be able to note that. What was presented to us today is that there is revenue hours for a specific line that we think we could save. Will you say yes to that piece? In reading the email that was provided, the context helped clarify a lot of how we arrived to the action item. And I think that was really beneficial for those who give me calls of, I'm concerned, what does it mean? It's out of process. Is this a breach of contract? What is, I think the context matters because it helps us understand you don't always control the timing of things, and you have to present something in front of us. I think that the intent of the goal of saving a line is one thing, but also what's being presented to this board of what should have been is you have these revenue hours, and these are multiple options. You need to decide how to proceed from there, right? I think that the other question that I asked Christina is, okay, what if, the funding partners say no? Like, what does that happen to us in this route? Can we dip into our own reserves to save the line for the next 6 months as we hash out the details through the legal process, the technical process, have to go through, and then we can come back in January for the entire agreements to be update. But what can we do as a board to take action to save it, and is that within our wheelhouse? And I think you mentioned that's something that we could consider. It's really up to the board how it could be navigated through. And so we didn't have much more time to talk because it was about to start. So I'm just paraphrasing a little bit of what I caught. So I just wanted to update you all about brief conversations, outreach I received, concerns around the agreement itself. If this action, does this could it infer a breach of contract with what's already in place or not, and then with the presentation of what came to the board, could have been something else that would have maybe reduced a little bit of that noise. However, we all can see from the logic of that email how we arrived to today. So I just wanted to note those things. Thank you.
Yeah, mine's going to take a second, and I'm going to start out with some questions first. And the first question, that's a glaring question for me, is how did we miss 2,500 hours given the depth of research and study that went into the COA, given the expertise that I keep hearing about from all the transit folks, the contractors and everybody else that's associated with this organization, how did we miss 2,500 hours? That's my first question, right? Why are we just hearing about it now with 3 days left to make a decision, right? Why are we hearing about 2,500 hours now? First question. That's the staff. How do we get there? Why is that?
I can talk to that. So that's 10 hours a weekday. I padded the initial concepts with extra layover time to make sure that we had the bus laying over so that we can meet with BART. And I didn't get the final BART schedule till a couple months ago. I padded it with extra time so that for running time, so that to account for extra traffic. And then the biggest one is I accounted for a lot of extra time in the blue and yellow line. That was in the initial concept, it was drawn up as one line that went from Vallejo, went down to Concord, and then went up to Dixon, Vacaville. So when I cut those apart and turned them into two separate lines, that is where I saw the most cost savings of two separate routes. The concept was drawn up as one route with a lot of extra layover time. When I pulled it apart and I made it two separate routes is where I found the most, almost 7 hours a day of extra layover time that I wouldn't have found until I finished the blocking.
And our expert that we paid a whole big old bucket of money to do the COA, he didn't catch that.
That wasn't part of their scope. No one would have caught it until
Nobody
the
looked at
blocking
those
was
lines
done.
at that time?
That their expertise is looking at travel patterns and giving us concepts. Their scope was not to build the schedules, the actual blocking. That's my job.
Okay. Next question, and this is for council, is when we talk about the breach of contract, and if you read the email that came from STA, it talks about Section V, route, schedule, and service areas, and this is a legal and binding agreement, and it says here that it has to go back to the TAC and to the STA. So you just told us, hey, we're all good, it's legal, go ahead and do what you want to do.
Yeah, the issue is that
it
this
should go to
does
them
not have,
first.
if you choose to go forward with this, and this is the route that STA wants to go forward, which I would like to remind you, STA is a member of this JPA, right? So to start throwing in breach of contract, they are a member of you. They are a parent of you, right? And so when a parent starts saying to a child, you're being bad, it goes to that conflict that I talked about before, right? So if this is the way that they want to lawyer up with this, right? One way that this board, if you would like to maintain this route, then the intercity funding agreement won't fund this route, right? So you could choose to move forward and say, this will not be part of the funding agreement. It wasn't part of the funding agreement because they agreed, you were all going to cut Route 82, right? So that is what is right now part of the agreement. If you would like to add back in hours that you found, the change in the couch, right? Because you found so many hours based on how you put the system back together, right? If this is not part of the current agreement and you want to add it back in, if it's not in the agreement, is it really breach of contract, right?
But it's not our money that we found in the couch. It's their money that we
right?
found
No,
in the couch.
it is. You are part funding. You are a part funding.
Correct.
SolTrans funds a part of this, right?
Correct.
If you would like to fund a route that serves residents of Fairfield and Sassoon and Vacaville who are driving to catch this route, and you want to fund this route 100%, you can do that, right? And that is not part of the intercity funding agreement. If they want to say this is a breach of contract because you didn't come to me, it highlights the fact that the intercity funding structure is broken. If it has to go through staff to come up with a system that goes from stop to stop to stop, and then we want to implement it, and they say, no, you can't implement it because you have to come back to us to go through the process to actually then have all agreement to approve by that board to come back to you to say, now you may, right? It shows the weakness of the system, of the agreement, right? I'm saying if you go forward with it and they call breach, you say, fine, we will take that out of the intercity funding agreement and it's prerogative of this board to say, you fund it yourself.
Okay, two things on that. The first is, when I first got here onto this board, coming from the STA board, there was conflict over what this board could do and what this board couldn't do. And as flawed as it may be, that agreement is what is legally binding over both of these entities. And to say that we are going to just move ahead at the risk that we could be challenged. I'm not saying that STA would. I'm not saying that bringing the 82 route back is not a good thing. I'm saying that we have a process, we have a legally binding contract, we have things that we should be sticking to, and we have relationships that we have the potential to damage even further than they already are by moving forward in that fashion. Right? We got a letter not just from STA, we got a letter from the city of Fairfield too, right? That also says, hey, wait a minute, calling foul, right? And wanting to change. And Fairfield's directly affected. I mean, Fairfield is the transit agency where it happens. That's where everybody drives to, right? But Vacaville doesn't get a say. They don't sit on this board. Dixon doesn't get a say. You just said Vacaville drives down here. Dixon drives down here. All those people, none of those people sit on this board, and they don't get a say. But we're going to take an action today, board, that can directly affect them. And we're going to do it knowing that on Tuesday, that TAC is going to meet, that group is going to meet, and could very well say, yeah, no, we don't want to do that. We want to put it all back into the green line. We want it to go there, and we would have to eat $400,000. The problem I have with that is I just went down and went tooth and nail at MTC to get you all a couple $1,000,000 so that your fiscal cliff, right, got pushed out 4 years. And now that we got this money, all of a sudden, well, we're going to be frivolous with it. We're going to say, hey, you know, forget the intercity funding agreement. We're not going to do that. We're going to take some of this money we just got that prevented us from going on the fiscal cliff out of our reserves, and we're going to pay for that line ourselves. Why did I go down there and spend all that time getting that RM3 money then, so that we could use it for that, when in actuality, we're trying to be frugal, we're trying to make cuts, and we're trying to extend to make sure that we have service into the future, instead of spending it on the 82 line right now, outside of the funding agreement. I'm just saying there's vulnerabilities there from a fiscal standpoint. There's vulnerabilities there from a relationship and business relationship standpoint that we have with the other agencies in this region, all because we're in a hurry. And that brings me to my last question. Do we have anybody from the contractor in the room? So my question for the contractor would be, and to staff, why, we're rushing around here because according to this email, the contractor is going to hold us to some line and say, there's a line in the sand and you can't cross that, right? Or there's a consequence, or we have a contract, or whatever the case might be, and they're not willing to work with us in order to extend that time at all. So this is the same contractor who we just awarded a contract to, an extended, what, 2 or 3 meetings ago? If we're going to rescind something, I say rescind their contract, send it out, and find somebody else. If they're not willing to work with us on something as simple as this, for a week?
The timeline is not anything that has to do with the contractor. It's the time that it takes once the blocking is complete, that we need to make a run cut and a roster so that those operators can bid on that service. It needs to go through the union, which takes, there's a part of our CBA where it has to be posted for 5 days, and then the union needs to negotiate it for another 5 days. And then we need to put it in all our technology, all the real-time information, all the paddles for the operators to bid on. That is a multiple month process. It's not, has anything to do with the contractor. They're willing, I gave them 2 blockings. I gave them a blocking without the 82, and I gave them blocking with the 82, so that they could review and get feedback. That they're great partners, so please don't rescind that contract. That timeline is pressed because all of the other milestones that we have to get through, so that service is going and running for our riders on August 2nd. we have to abide by that timeline. And that's been the timeline for all of our service changes. I have to start 6 months in advance. I will have to start the January service change the second they finish the run cut of the August service change. That's the union contract.
So what external forces, is it a union? What external forces are causing this timeline to exist that aren't willing to wait a week?
Mandy, could you explain the process?
Yes.
Start from the very beginning, explain the whole thing for everybody on the board.
Okay, so it begins 5 months before the service change goes into effect. We look at the service, we make sure the second the service change goes into effect, I'm following data, runtime information, on-time performance. Did everything that I said that I was going to do in the last service change come to fruition? If not, then I start making a list of what needs to change. Then I take public feedback, and then I take operator-contractor feedback, and then I start the service change process. And within my budget that Christina has approved, which the board has approved, I start building the schedules and adjusting time within the approved budget, what I can and cannot do. Then, what I can and cannot do with the number of buses and number of operators I have. I build a blocking service. That takes multiple weeks and multiple iterations. I have to align with BART, I have to align at VTC, I have to align at FTC, I have to align at Vacaville Transportation Center. I take all those things into consideration, and then I cut up the service into blocks with what our buses can do. The electric load of the buses is different than the CNG load of the buses, is different than the diesel load of the buses, and I make blocks of buses. A block is a bus that pulls out and work it does in between and when it pulls back in. That's a block. It could do multiple routes on a block. It could do multiple trips on a block. Then I hand that off, again, multiple weeks. I hand that off to the contractor who reviews it to make sure that everything that we talked about is done, and the blocking is within their parameters of available buses and operators. Then they cut it up even further into schedules. So an operator may come in, pull a bus out of 1850, come to VTC and do the red line, and then come back and do the yellow line, and then from the yellow line do the blue line, and then come back and take a break, and then do all local service. They cut that up, the run, cut, and rostering process. That's a multiple week process because it takes a lot of iterations in time. The wage order 9 rules, the break rules, the union rules. Then that gets finished, then we get an opportunity to review it, which takes a week, and then we get feedback back, and that's completed. At that point, then the union comes in. There are rules that the posting, the run cut and the rostering has to be posted for staff to review, and then they have 3 business days to review it. It's very difficult during August because we have the 4th of July holiday, and then very difficult in January because we have the Christmas and Thanksgiving holiday. Then, after the union reviews it, there is another round of iterations of the run, cut, and rostering that's done. Those changes are made, and then it can be posted for staff to review and bid on. It has to be posted for 5 days, and then the staff can bid on it by seniority. At that point, we are 4 weeks away from the service change. Training needs to happen. The operators need to know what their new bid looks like, what their new roster looks like. While they're doing the run cut, I'm also marketing the service to make sure that everyone and all the riders are aware. Public schedules are available to review before the service goes live. So by the time that all that is done, we are a week or 2 before the service change, and I've already started the next service change, which in this case will be January.
I asked her to do that so that you could understand why we have this impasse between what you are directing your staff to do and what funding partners are, whether you say rightly, I say maybe unrightly so, are upset because they don't have a say, right? And so staff trying to do staff work to make sure your buses run on time, run efficiently, have contractors who know what they're doing, what routes they're driving, and make sure that our riders know that the buses are going to show up on time and they want to ride our buses, right? And so, yes, I understand that STA feels that they are going to put a contract in front of you and say that we should have the final say. But everything that Mandy just said, it doesn't factor in stopping and then going to consortium, to go to then TAC, to then go to the STA board, to then say, no, we don't like it, start again. And so, yes, this is unfortunate, and I hear your frustration, and I understand that it did not fit in everything else. I would also say that the process of the COA did not flow the way that it should have been in terms of having the conversation, and we got to the last minute, and we didn't get the service running the way that we wanted to, North County, right? This is a line that is aligned with MTC and ARM 3. It goes right across the bridge. It is aligned with all the other metrics that MTC is saying, this is what we want. This is what we are supportive of. This is what allows you to get the money, right? The North County ones, that doesn't support necessarily RM3 because it's not bridge toll aligned, right? So I understand and I get all that. If it doesn't work with all the other partners, your prerogative, you know, as Mayor Young is saying, you could find the revenue, go back to MTC and say, this is what RM3 is all about. Please get the $300,000 because our funding partners are not going to support it. Our board has made a decision. When we had the discussion about moving forward with the intercity funding agreement, it was at the last minute, and we said, it's 1 year, go for it, let's have the conversation later. So we're going to get up to the 1 year, and we're going to have the conversation because we executed it for 1 year, right? So we can talk about breach of contract. We can bring that back at another time. This is a discussion. Do you want to give staff direction to bring it in? It sounds like all the other of everything else that Mandy has done, adding a few hours here and there, adding additional, you know, one more route somewhere else doesn't make sense at this moment in time. This made sense at the last minute to bring it in. If you don't like it for process reason, don't do it. You have that option. You have, you know, as Mayor Young said, you have the option to conditionally approve it for staff subject to going back to consortium. If consortium says yes, then obviously if consortium says yes, hopefully consortium can take it to then TAC then take it to the STA board, and STA board says, yes, albeit reluctantly, that they would then approve retroactively this action, right? And then be consistent with the agreement. But there is, you know, everything that Mandy just said, there's a lot of work to go into this. And so to put it on pause and say we have to go through process does not make sense at this last minute to implement it to get it going forward as of August 1st.
So, two things. One is, I appreciate your opinion on that as council, but this is a board decision.
That's what I just said.
And so, two things. The first is that, as I said before, I don't think that this doesn't make sense. There are riders who are affected, there are riders who will benefit, it's a chance to grow ridership, it's all those things. My problem is that, again, we have a fractured system in this county right now for the purposes of transit. And it's fractured because we, STA and SolTrans boards, broke it. And it's up to us to fix it. And this doesn't fix it. We cannot continue to operate and make decisions in this fashion and think that we're going to be successful in future endeavors, because it's going to continue and continue and continue. Now, I can see where staff put in a lot of hours, and you put in a lot of time, and you put in a lot of work to get this 2,500 hours back in Route 82. And I understand the timeline and the need for that somewhat. I think that there would be the ability to push that out. I think the union's got to bend a little. I think the contractor's got to bend a little. I think people got to bend a little. I think people just choosing not to. I've been through negotiations with unions. I've been through contract negotiations and all those things in innumerable iterations in almost 40 years in public service. So I understand all of those things. This has got to be the last time. If we're going to do this and we're going to cause that rift to be greater with the other folks that sit on the STA board, with the other folks on the consortium and those things over this, then we got to make a commitment here amongst ourselves as a board that this is the last time. And staff has got to know that this is the last time. There's not going to be another time, at least while I'm sitting here, that I'm going to be willing to vote for or tolerate something like this coming forward at the last minute. And an expectation that we tell all of our partners, too bad, so sad, you know, come back and see us after the fact. I'm not going to be in support of that, and I don't think anybody up here should be either, if you're actually feeling like we want to make it better. I'll let it go at that. Yeah, I'll just let it go at that.
So, I don't disagree with anything that has been said. I think the first thing that I'll just do, and Bern kind of already touched on this, is I think we all have to just step back and recognize that this process has set us up to fail in a big way, and that the one thing we all wish we had is a time machine to go back and not have had this process be horrific. And I just want to recognize, first of all, Mandy, I want to thank you for all the work you've done, and thank you for your explanation right now of what that process is, because I think that's one of the things that has frustrated me most. And I happened to come on the board, not different actually from my colleague, right around the time when all of this was coming to a head. And so it's very much characterized my time on both boards, is I came onto both boards and this was the big thing. I think a lot of the missing piece has been the recognition of the work that has to happen in this agency to get these lines running, and that the people that we're serving are served because of that work that is done to get these lines moving. And when elected officials, to Supervisor Mashburn's point, when elected officials fail to shepherd a process that sets us up for success, we have to take accountability for that, and we have to fix it without harming our riders. Which brings me to my position on this. I hate this. This sucks. I love that we found ours. That's amazing. Thank you. That's wonderful. What great news. Like, again, let's just step back and go, fantastic. We thought we were going off a fiscal cliff, and we found new revenue hours, and we found new funds. What a wonderful situation we're in. Now the question is, what do? We have 4 business days to make a decision that should have taken a month. What do? Well, the last thing we want to do is cut a line and then bring it back, because we will lose those riders for good. It doesn't matter what sector you're in, your trust with your clientele is the most important thing, and once you burn it, it's done. So if there is any desire amongst folks, which I think for a line that serves Fairfield, and it sounds like people from Vacaville driving down, I don't think we want to just burn that right now if we have the opportunity, because if we burn it, we'll never get it back. But I also recognize that we made a decision to cut it for a reason. And when we were going through the COA last year, I remember thinking, well, this is the one that makes the most sense to cut because it's redundant. We have BART, we have lines to BART that go to the city, and we have a ferry that goes to the city. However, I've learned a lot about the 82 since then, and I've learned that it's actually not Vallejo folks can take the ferry. We're not as hurt by 82, losing 82. It's actually the folks in Fairfield and North County that are able to make that trip without having to transfer from a bus to BART or from a bus to ferry. So I'm wondering if there's a way that we can just acknowledging holistically the situation we're in and trying to frame it as, unfortunately, we don't have a time machine, but what a wonderful situation. This shouldn't be fraught. This should be, wow, look at this opportunity we have. Is there a way that we can keep 82 for just long enough to give us a chance to have a conversation without making you go through the whole amount of work again? Because what I don't want to do is say, oh, I think, in my layperson head, that is not a transit specialist, I go, well, why not just chuck the decision to October? Let's take it one more quarter out, or November, whatever, August. I guess that's not a full quarter, but let's just take it a couple months out, and then decide. But I feel like that's going to put a whole bunch of work on you. So my question is, what is the minimum amount of time that we could, in good faith, this board recommend and request of our funding partners that little bit of time? So we've already shot ourselves in the foot on the blue line, and I have to just, in the Dixon service, the Davis service, because this savings could have gone to Davis, and I have to get over myself with my frustration at that situation and how badly we bungled that. So let's not shoot ourselves in the other foot and kill 82, and we've killed the service to Davis because we can't get it together. So that's my question for you, Mandy, if you understand it, because I've said a lot. Like, what's the minimum amount of time that we can extend 82 and have a conversation without completely overwhelming your workload and the service operator, the operator, and everybody?
The next service change is January.
In January. So we are deciding August, September, October, November, January. We're basically making a 5 months decision.
And it's the first Sunday of January, so it's not the whole month of January. So
Okay. So we're talking about 5 months, at which point, now this is the other crappy thing. I'm trying not to swear, so I'm just saying things like crappy and crummy and shoddy. This is where we could be putting it into the blue line to Davis. But now we have this van pool. So I'm like, January could have been the moment where we invest this in the northern route. So I don't know. I mean, I'm supportive of continuing the service, authorizing the continuation of the service to January so that we don't lose it, giving ourselves more time to really understand who those new riders are, where they're from, what their needs are, give us time to have a conversation and recognize that this is not ideal for anyone, and this is not the time for folks to just, take their ball and go home. This is like the last step in a multi-year process that has not been fun for anybody. So let's just get across this finish line, and then we'll, fix it next year. What I don't want to do is approve it right now contingent on the funding partners and have them all blow up, and the board, the elected officials haven't had a chance. So elected officials authorized it, staff of different agencies kill it, and then the elected officials of the county don't have a chance. So if we need to have an emergency, like a special meeting of the STA board, we need to have a special meeting of the STA board. And I think maybe that would be the extra contingency that I would put if the TAC or the consortium, thank you. If the consortium has an issue, we need to have a meeting of the STA board so that it can come back to the elected officials who are accountable. Not that I don't we want obviously there's a reason that's there. We want the providers to weigh in, but I don't want to have a rider go, you lost your service because elected officials couldn't get their heads out of their, the decision has to be made by elected officials. If we're going to kill this, it has to be made by elected officials so that you can go to that resident and that rider and go, that's the person you go to. It's not, this decision was made by a staff member of this agency, but the elected officials that voted on it liked it. It's like, no, the STA board has got to, we have to, if we have to have a special meeting, we have to have a special meeting. I think that's kind of where I'm landing on it. So I'll end there. I'm kind of like supervisor. I'm like, I'll just end there. I could talk for days.
One piece of information, I believe Mandy said June 3rd was her drop dead date. So it's not necessarily today. It's just this is the only time we had a meeting. We have consortium next week, and I believe FATAC is right after, like the day after. Yeah, it's Wednesday, so it's Wednesday's TAC.
So I mean, we could just have I don't know.
So
this is let's figure this out and not shoot ourselves in the second foot after we've already shoot ourselves in the first foot. I think that's my feeling.
Well, thank you for that. That was a very lively and intense conversation here. And I'm going to continue moving it down. But I just want to remember that the intent here is to continue to support our riders. And our riders have said that if possible, through their feet, they want to continue the blue line. And meaning by their feet, 27% increase in ridership on that line, on the blue line. We're talking 82. 82 is not 82. Route 82. Right. Excuse me. Route 82, or Route 82. But the point being is that I think our intent is absolutely, this is a positive opportunity. Wow, we found money. And in the couch, we were digging in the couch, and Supervisor Matchburn was able to find millions of dollars to keep us fiscally solid. The issue that we have in front of us today should be, wow, we're going to be able to continue to bring people from point A to point B in a manner in which they want and they have proven a desire to go on. And so I think that trying to frame this positively as we look at something that, there's political overtones, there's process overtones, all of that. I hate when we talk about how is this going to be a fracture, a continued fracture in SolTrans and STA? I think that this board and a lot of us on this board have worked our butts off this year in particular to remedy some of the issues that we saw in 2025 about communication, about politicking, about working together and finding ways to make this a better better agency. And I would hope that the bending, as you mentioned, perhaps bending a little, gives us an opportunity to get to a solution and then bring it to STA and I guess in a potentially a special meeting or whatever. But I really believe that we're trying to frame this as a positive way to be able to provide services to our riders. Mayor Young?
Thank you. I also want to thank Supervisor Mashburn again for the work you did in getting us additional funds to forestall the fiscal crisis. And I want to thank Robert, who, if anybody doesn't know, Robert Guerrero is our interim executive director at STA. And this is an opportunity to, hopefully, I think this is an opportunity for Robert to sort of, help with trying to bridge this gap and provide some neutral analysis and help the inner city group. I agree with Supervisor Mashburn. It's a problem. This whole setup is a problem. I think we all recognize that. It's hard for me to believe that the inner city group on Tuesday will make any decision other than, oh, this is a good thing. You've got a line that serves a lot of people. It's serving people in Fairfield. It's serving people in Sassoon. It's serving people in Vacaville. We've got the ability to keep it going. It boggles my mind to think that they wouldn't go for that. And so what I'd like to see is a motion to approve this contingent upon the approval of the inner city working group. And Robert, did you say that we could put this on the STA board agenda for, please?
I don't know how to share this. Oh, I'm on. Thank you, everybody. Robert Guerrero, Deputy Executive Director, Director of Planning for the Solana Transportation Authority. I recognize the emotions and all of the tension that this action has created. So to answer your question directly, yes. So we are planning to bring this conversation to the Intercity Transit Working Group. That's going to be on Tuesday. The TAC meeting is going to be Wednesday. The board meeting is on June 10th. So we can work to try to have a special meeting so we can really focus on this. I do recognize the position you are in, and it is difficult. And one of these things that where the comments that I've been hearing, and it's not STA, it's STA with the funding partners working through this. I think what is really prevalent here is that today you have the resources to maybe add another line or rescind that decision. Doing that without the feedback from the funding partners is one thing. But what about the times when you don't have the resources to do that and you don't give the funding partners a chance to provide their input? The comments that I'm hearing is this sets a precedence. And the funding agreement right now gives your funding partners the safeguards or, the safety net to provide those inputs. And so by doing this, I think that's what you're hearing from the funding partners. I'm just trying to reflect that. I don't have direction from my board yet, so I made it very clear that this is just a concern at this point. So I do want to work with your staff, and I certainly appreciate Bernadette's perspective. Because, this is a very important decision. So whatever I need to do to help further this conversation, I'll do that.
And would June 10th be too late if the STA board meets and approves this on June 10th?
I have to ask you, Mandy.
I would need to reach out to the contractor who's doing the run cutting and the process that I could follow up.
Okay, but I think that gets back to Supervisor Mashburn's point, is that I think the unions and Transiv, it's in their interest to do this as well. So if the letter of the law of the contract says they want 5 days, well, can they do it in 3 days? Can they do something to allow this to happen, to maintain the line, to maintain the routes and the jobs and the assignments, and most importantly, maintain the ridership and provide these services? I can't imagine when it gets to STA board that Mayor Hernandez, Mayor Moy, anybody whose residents rely on this is going to object to it. I mean, we can't fall into this, paralysis by analysis situation where, we have an opportunity here, and I think it's something that everybody in the end is going to get behind. Let's just get through the process and shorten the process if necessary to allow this to happen.
Well, presumably, if consortium and TAC are going to recommend support, I mean, obviously that is staff's recommendation. So they're going to know. You're going to know next Wednesday whether or not that there's going to be support for this, right? So presumably, not to box Robert in, but if consortium supports and TAC supports, then the recommendation will be then going forward to the board. Board is not going to go against TAC and consortium, particularly if you've got 4 people here saying if you're going to support it and consortium supports and TAC supports, there's not going to be a recommendation from STA staff to go against consortium and TAC, right? So you're going to know next Wednesday. If consortium says no and TAC says no, then you're going to know next week not to go forward.
Good point.
Mayor Hernandez?
Yes, thank you. I'm going to, a couple of things that I just want to quickly note. Thank you so much, Mandy, for all the work. We know how passionate you are, and you give your heart to everything that you do. That's very evident here. And so one of the things that I want to make sure we compartmentalize is the conversation specific to the Route 82. From what I heard, and from my own opinion, and what I've expressed to the acting director at STA is we're supportive of Route 82, right? We're supportive of ridership, we're supportive of increasing. So if we compartmentalize that conversation, I don't think that that's the issue in front of us about Route 82 saving ridership. The issue in front of us, and I'll go back to what came in front of this board, was the wrong thing that caused all of this consternation. And without due respect to our legal counsel, I'm going to push back on some of the commentary, because it was riddled with bias and it was riddled with assumptions. Because at no point in my conversations with STA did at any point infer that we were just off and doing our thing and we can't move forward. Actually, it was riddled with like, hey, how can we figure this out? We need to raise our concern because it's been raised to them. And in those conversations, it's like, well, make sure that we connect with SolTrans. All right, that's the next move. Called over to Christina, hey, like, so these are some concerns, like, we need to figure this out. How do we do that? Okay, like, came back, like, hey, it's collaborative, like, we're just trying to figure it out, because what's on the agenda already printed in public is one thing, and that's an action item, and this is what's being inferred because there's no attachment to it. And so there's all these nuances that happened on the onset that were being course corrected because collaboration was at the center of those conversations. The second piece is the premise around the revenue hours, right? service revenue hours. One of the pieces that was noted was, we have 2,500 revenue hours, and if the consortium or SCA doesn't want to use it, we will just remove them, and we will just go get funding and things like that. The issue with that is the premise around that the revenue hours were not even allowed to be in consideration as a whole. Like that's part of the issue, is that the intercity funding agreement, right, in good faith went into these negotiations and agreements, or those pieces, with, in their mind, the full set of information in front of them, right? So to say that, hey, we found some additional revenue hours, and however you want to use them or not, that's a part of an issue that I find with, right? And so, in conversation, when it's framed that way, it creates additional conflict when it's being interpreted in that way. Because really the ask, and I'll go back, is there's some additional revenue hours. Great thing. These are the options available to you, right? The other piece that I just want to quickly note is that there is, why does the intercity funding agreement matter? Okay, Supervisor Masher mentioned it, is because it provides a guardrails to the system to everyone that's involved in the intercity funding agreement. What does that matter? It's because it ensures that when service changes or revenue changes or anything, like, we're all just aware that those are happening, and we're just like in lockstep. And the distrust happened because, and I'll mention it again, it's not new to any of us, is that a service change did happen in the reduction of service that didn't go through the appropriate process, right? And so the ramifications right now is that both boards arrived to that, unfortunately, with the sense of, like, there was a break in that trust at that moment, that agreement wasn't respected to go through the process, and then we were left with two cities hanging around, trying to figure it out, and emergency solutions to that. And I agree with everybody, and this is why the subcommittees, the ad hoc committee's recommendation back up was, we need to take the rest of the year to figure out the intercity funding agreement and the processes. My first communication out to Robert was this. It was, SolTrans has to have the autonomy to respond to the changing landscape in what's in front of them. They have to have the ability to navigate that. Yet at the same time, we are constrained by a framework and a system that has, like, these off timings, both because of the COA when it arrived, and the other board also had to make a decision that maybe wasn't favorable, right, to SolTrans because of the blue line where we landed with Vanpool there, right? So as we continue to raise these pieces, I think that I think what's important to us collectively is to identify when they're happening, why they're happening, and I'll use your terminology, that root cause analysis to figure out how to strengthen it. The other piece that I just want to quickly note is we haven't resolved the issue yet. So when I mentioned it to Christina, is like, I want a solution to how do we arrive to saving the Route 82 while being conscious and aware of what it means to the funding partners. In the future, I think, now that we're learning through this process, there's always a learning opportunity. If we are faced with something like this again, you said this is the last time, well, what happens if another situation happens that no one controls because of timing or funding or things? I think what we're learning from this opportunity is that we have to have protocols in place around what do we do as collective agencies at staff level to figure that out before it arrives for a decision that gets ahead of the consortium and the intercity funding group. So what I heard today was, you know what would have been a good process is like, hey team, you figured out we have extra revenue hours, it's gonna trigger these things. Go work with the other members, inform them, get their feedback, identify a process collectively that we would take if the board chooses option A, fund Route 82 contingent to this, that should have been spelled out in that staff report. If the board says we are not gonna fund this and wait to 82, these are your implications, that should have been in the staff report. Identifying that the process around the agreement was acknowledged, respected as best as you can, and you've put the rest of the membership on notice, and that's what's being presented to us. So we've learned from this process that part of it is We are just trying to strengthen something that we know is collectively an issue, and that is a process-related piece, that is a legal contract-related piece, that is other agencies that are involved related piece. But I'll go back to an item that I do agree with our legal counsel, which is this board does have to make a decision for the Route 82. Like that is the prerogative of this board to give direction around if you want to do X and then the contingency plan associated with that and what that means. Understanding whatever implications those are out there and whatever people feel or all those things, that's this board's autonomy to do that and position that this board how it goes. And so those are my comments, and I believe that there's a member of the public that might have been waiting to speak. I don't know if they're here. Yes, they're here. So I don't know if we can go to the members of the public or anything like that.
Do we have anyone wishing to make public comment?
Yes.
Please.
She removed her name. I'm not sure what happened. Go ahead and approach the podium. For the record, if you could state your name.
Briefly, we do have another meeting that's meeting in here at 6 p.m. It's now 5:50.
Right.
Won't be too long. Thank you, and good afternoon, Chair Scott and members of the board. I wanted to preface my comments by thanking Mayor Source and Mayor Hernandez for responding to my email earlier in the year with regard to the Route 82. My name is Caroline Cavallero. I live in Vallejo and have been so since 2016, and I work in downtown San Francisco for an international law firm. I am here today to request and urge you to consider keeping the SolTrans Route 82 bus service in service, which runs from Fairfield to San Francisco and back, stopping in Vallejo. The Route 82 has a last run at 10:40 p.m., leaving San Francisco. Losing this route would force people to take the BART system late at night. They would have to transfer in Oakland and ultimately end up at the El Cerrito del Norte station, where they would have to wait for a connecting SolTrans R bus to take them to their final destination. With regard to the financial cost of keeping the Route 82 running, I would like to suggest having the fare increased from the current fare of $6 to $9 per trip in order to offset the cost of keeping the Route 82 in service. The suggested fare increase would more closely align with the current cost of taking the BART train and the SolTrans bus to Vallejo and Fairfield. I have anxiety taking the BART trains, and this bus has alleviated my stress greatly by providing a quiet, relaxed atmosphere after work. My fellow passengers have expressed joy in having this bus as a convenient route to help them get to home as well. We have a varied demographic in our bus community, and losing this route would impact families, working people, the older community such as myself, and all who have come to rely on the Route 82 to get them home. I cannot fully express how grateful I am to have the Route 82 bus available to take me home after work. This is the best option for me to get home, and I know that my fellow bus passengers feel the same way. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Thank you. Do we have any other?
Through the chair, no other speakers on this item at this time.
All right, I'll bring it back to the board for a motion. Or, please.
No, that's my intent, was
Please.
to make a motion.
Make a
And
motion.
all right, I would make the motion that we approve the staff recommendation to maintain the line contingent upon the outcome of the Tuesday and Wednesday TAC and consortium meetings, and dependent upon those, direct staff to then bring it back to this board if needed.
I second it.
We have a second. Please call the roll.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
That was the motion I was going to make. So.
Oh, well,
Yeah.
look at there. Every once in a while.
We're always together,
All
Mitch.
right, we have 6 minutes with a hard stop. I'm going to adjourn the meeting.
Well, before you do, director's comments?
Please, director's comments, and then we'll, because we can't continue on with it.
Yes, but I saw in the paper just a little notice that SolTrans is not providing service on Memorial Day. Is that true?
Provide service for what?
On Memorial Day. are we shutting down on Memorial Day?
Yes.
That is one of our observed holidays, yes.
So, and this is a normal thing that we do?
That, as long as I've been a part of SolTrans, that has been
Are
an
there other
adopted
holidays
policy.
that we don't do service?
Christmas, Easter, Thanksgiving Day, New Year's Day. I think that's 7, and then there are 5 other Saturday service holidays, Veterans Day. Labor Day is another non-service day.
I guess I didn't realize that, because certainly BART and Amtrak and all the other transit agencies don't take the day off. And I'm wondering if we are, you know, who we're hurting by not serving on that day. But if it's something that we've been done in the past, is it part of the policy, then I'll stop there. I was just surprised about it. Okay, thanks.
Any other comments?
Just a friendly reminder, we're supposed to leave the green folders here.
Adjourned.